The message crackled through Earth's communication channels, a sharp, disdainful tone cutting across every frequency. You humans are cowards. It wasn't the first time Earth had been threatened by alien forces, but this was different. The alien general's words carried weight, not just in arrogance, but in experience. The voice was unmistakably sure of its power, its conviction, its dominance. The ultimatum was simple. One soldier, Earth's best, against an army capable of wiping out planets. The challenge? Prove humanity's worth in battle or face extinction. Across the world, governments scrambled for a response. National leaders convened in emergency meetings. Military generals drafted strategies. But none could offer a solution that didn't reek of desperation. The task was impossible. The alien force outmatched humanity in every aspect. For the first time, Earth faced a threat not just from a technologically superior foe, but one that understood the very psychology of warfare. Humanity, by its very nature, was unprepared for the vastness of the universe's hostility. History was dotted with failures of those who underestimated the resilience of Earth's inhabitants, yet no one had ever dared to challenge them so openly, so directly. This alien general wasn't just testing Earth's strength, he was testing its spirit. And then came the order. One soldier. The decision was as swift as it was shocking. Amidst the global panic, only one person would face the wrath of this alien warlord. Sergeant Samantha Hayes, a name known among the military elite. She was a soldier who had survived the worst battles, outsmarted superior foes, and completed impossible missions. Her reputation had earned her a singular role, Earth's champion, the last hope of humanity. Samantha stood in the briefing room, surrounded by the commanders of Earth's united forces. Their faces were stern, their eyes filled with doubt. She could see it, the skepticism. Earth had sent soldiers before, had sent armies, but one? Sergeant Hayes, the commander began, his voice steady, but tinged with a sadness that spoke volumes. You know the odds. There's no backup, no reinforcements. You will be alone. The alien general has promised that if you fail, humanity will cease to exist as we know it. Samantha's gaze never faltered, the weight of the situation pressing down on her shoulders, yet her resolve remained unshaken. She was Earth's best, and if humanity was to survive, she was the one to face this threat. I understand, she said, her voice cool, composed, but with an edge of defiance that none could ignore. I'll fight. I'll win. The general's words still echoed in her mind, the taunts, the challenge. You humans are cowards. It wasn't just a threat. It was a test. With a final look at the gathered commanders, Samantha turned and left the room. There was no time for speeches, no time for doubts. She had a battle to prepare for, one that would define not just her future, but the future of an entire species. As she boarded the transport ship, the weight of the mission settled into her chest. She knew the risks. She knew the odds. The alien general had underestimated humanity before. He would do so again. And when the gates of his war zone closed behind her, it wouldn't just be her life on the line. It would be the soul of Earth itself. With a final glance at the stars beyond, Samantha Hayes whispered to herself, I'll show them what cowards are really made of. The ground beneath Samantha's boots cracked with an unsettling hum as the transport ship disintegrated into the planet's atmosphere. The moment her feet touched the alien soil, the gravity of the situation set in. She was alone. The alien world was nothing like Earth. The sky was a sickly orange, the sun a distant, fiery eye. The air was thick with tension, every breath feeling foreign, as if the very atmosphere was designed to challenge humanity's most basic instincts. Towering, jagged cliffs surrounded her, casting long shadows over the barren landscape. And then she heard it, an electronic voice, cold and mechanical, reverberating through the ground. Welcome to the arena. It wasn't just a battlefield. It was a test. A place where warriors from across the galaxy were sent to prove their worth, or perish in the process. Samantha scanned her surroundings, her heart pounding in her chest. There was no sign of the alien general. No obvious enemy. But she knew better than to trust the silence. The arena was alive with danger, and it wouldn't wait for her to get comfortable. She checked her gear, a standard-issue pulse rifle, a combat knife, and a few days' worth of rations. Her training had prepared her for almost anything, but this was a whole new level. The alien general's voice echoed in her mind. Asterisk, you will face what your kind cannot survive. You will learn why humans are weak. Asterisk. Samantha took a steadying breath. This wasn't about survival. This was about proving the truth that the aliens had gotten wrong. Humans weren't weak. They weren't cowards. And they didn't back down from a challenge. A shadow crossed the ground, followed by a deep, mechanical growl. Instinct kicked in. Samantha dropped to one knee, aiming her rifle at the source. A massive creature appeared from behind a rock formation, its skin a sickly green, covered in armored plates. It stood on 4 legs, each tipped with razor-sharp claws, and its eyes glowed with an unnatural, predatory intelligence. This wasn't just an animal. It was a monster, one that had been bred to kill. Samantha's finger tightened on the trigger, but then something stopped her. She saw the creature's hesitation, the way it seemed to size her up before it charged. It wasn't just a mindless beast. It was part of the test, a puzzle, a choice. Kill it, or find a way to survive without losing her humanity in the process. The alien general's voice interrupted her thoughts. This is your first challenge, human. Show me your strength. The creature lunged. Samantha fired. Her shot hit its chest, but the creature shrugged it off with a howl of rage. She dove to the side as it swiped at her, claws scraping the rock beneath her. Her pulse rifle jammed. Cursing under her breath, she switched to her knife, rolling under the creature's massive body and stabbing upwards. The blade sank deep into its underbelly, and the creature shrieked in agony, staggering back. But it didn't fall. It was faster, stronger, and more relentless than anything she'd ever faced. She knew she didn't have the firepower to defeat it outright, so she had to think smarter. The environment offered no cover, no easy escape, just the creature and her. Using the creature's momentum against it, Samantha rolled to her feet and sprinted toward a nearby cliffside. The creature followed, driven by a primal rage. As it reached the edge, Samantha turned, pushing off with all her strength. She leapt high, landing on a rock outcrop just as the creature barreled past. It miscalculated, and with a final cry, it tumbled over the cliff, disappearing into the abyss below. She stood there, chest heaving, as the silence returned. The challenge wasn't over. The alien general was watching, but this victory was small. The real test was still to come. The voice of the alien general crackled through the comms, once more. Impressive, human. But this is just the beginning. You will break before the end. Samantha glanced up at the sky. Her fight was far from over. But she was ready. She was humanity's best, and she wasn't about to let an alien warlord dictate her fate. Not today. The alien general's voice cut through the stillness, like a blade. You are weak, human. I will break you, body and mind. Samantha paused, scanning the barren landscape for signs of movement. But there was nothing. No creatures. No traps. Just the endless, oppressive silence. She could almost feel the weight of the alien's gaze, a presence that was constantly watching, waiting for her to falter. The psychological game had begun. It was one thing to survive in a foreign environment, to face deadly creatures and hostile terrain. But this was something far more insidious. The general wasn't just testing her physical limits. He was waging a war on her mind. And that, Samantha knew, was something far more dangerous. She had faced her demons before, had trained herself to withstand the worst of humanity's horrors. But here on this alien world it felt different. The general's words lingered, creeping into her thoughts like a disease. You are weak, you will fail. The air was thick, heavier than it should have been, and every footstep seemed to echo with a deeper sense of isolation. She forced herself to focus, shaking off the creeping unease. She couldn't afford to lose her mind out here. Not now. Not when Earth's future depended on her. But it wasn't just the environment. No, the alien general had more tricks up his sleeve. Suddenly, the ground beneath her shifted, and a low hum vibrated through her feet. Her rifle's scope blinked to life. But this time, it wasn't the expected view of the alien landscape. It was her own face, distorted and warped. Her eyes flickered to the side. The reflection wasn't hers alone. There, behind her, was the form of her younger self, standing in the distance with a look of pity in her eyes. What's happening? The younger version of herself began to speak, her voice cold, accusing. You're failure, Samantha. You were never meant to win. They'll all die because of you. You'll never make it out of here. Samantha's chest tightened. The vision was all wrong, yet it felt so real. Her stomach churned as memories began to surface. Failed missions, lives lost, moments when she had doubted her own strength. But then, she remembered. The general's voice was a trick, a tool designed to make her question everything. She had faced worse, had endured battles far more terrifying than this. With a sharp breath, she forced the vision to fade. It was just a manipulation. She wasn't the failure the alien general wanted her to be. Not today, Samantha muttered under her breath, squaring her shoulders. The ground rumbled again, and this time, the reflection of her younger self vanished. But it was replaced by something else, more dangerous, more tangible. A countdown, ticking in the corner of her vision. 72:00. Samantha's heart skipped a beat. Time was now her enemy. The alien general's mind games weren't just psychological, they were tactical. He was playing with her sense of reality, forcing her to race against time, to question her every decision. The countdown continued, but it wasn't just some arbitrary clock. It was a weapon. If it reached 0, something catastrophic would happen. But what? The details were unclear, the threat unspecified. It was just another way to erode her confidence, to make her second-guess herself at every turn. She pushed forward, determined to ignore the mental traps the general had laid. The clock was ticking, but so was her resolve. She was a soldier, trained to survive, trained to adapt. She wouldn't fall for this. The landscape seemed to shift around her, and strange shapes began to form in the distance. Twisted, nightmarish creatures, the shadows of her own fears given physical form. They didn't move. They didn't need to. Their mere presence was enough to rattle her nerves, to remind her that she was alone, and this place was designed to break her. But Samantha didn't look away. She met their hollow eyes, standing tall, refusing to let them control her. This was just another test, and she had already decided she would pass. With every step she took, the shadows began to fade, the countdown still ticking relentlessly. It was a small victory, but it was one she would take. The general's mind games weren't over yet. She knew that. But Samantha Hayes wasn't about to let some alien puppet master break her. She had a mission, and that was all that mattered now. The countdown continued, but in her heart, the clock was already ticking toward victory. The ground shook again, but this time it wasn't a creature or trap. It was something else. Samantha felt it before she saw it, a strange hum that reverberated through her bones. Her instinct screamed at her to move, but curiosity held her in place as an object began to rise from the cracked earth ahead. A massive, ancient structure, half buried, appeared as if it had been waiting for her. She approached cautiously, weapon drawn, but the alien presence was still. No taunts, no challenges, just silence. It was the calm before the storm, and Samantha knew better than to ignore it. The structure was unlike anything she'd ever seen. Towering and ancient, its walls seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. Symbols, alien unrecognizable, carved into the surface glowed faintly as she stepped closer. This was no ordinary relic. The alien general had sent her here for a reason, and if she knew anything, it was that nothing on this world was ever what it seemed. She studied the device. It was a puzzle, one that required a deeper understanding of the alien technology. But Samantha had always been a quick learner. Her mind worked through the possibilities. This wasn't just a weapon, it was a test. To use it, she would need to unlock its secrets. The air around her grew heavy, the hum intensifying. She reached out to touch the surface of the structure, and the moment her fingers made contact, the ground beneath her feet rumbled violently. The air turned thick, and an image flashed in her mind, a vision of the alien general, his voice cold and mocking. "Do you think you can understand this power, human? You will fail as the others did." But Samantha wasn't ready to quit. She focused, pushing through the confusion. The symbols on the structure shifted before her eyes, rearranging themselves as if responding to her touch. Each shift brought a new revelation, a new piece of the puzzle. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a message, a piece of history left behind by a civilization long gone. The vision persisted, images of past battles, of forces stronger and fiercer than she could imagine. Yet, amidst the chaos, the message was clear. This structure wasn't just a tool of destruction. It was a symbol of hope, an answer to a question humanity had yet to ask. With one final, determined motion, she triggered the mechanism. The ground cracked open, revealing a chamber beneath the surface, filled with an array of strange, glowing orbs. This was the heart of the weapon, the core of its power. Samantha knew she had to act fast. The countdown she'd been given was still ticking down, and she didn't have much time. The alien general would no doubt have already been watching, waiting for her to fail. But she wasn't about to give him that satisfaction. She studied the orbs. They pulsed with energy, their light shifting from one hue to the next. They were unstable, yet potent. If she could harness their power, she could turn the tide. But the risk was immense. One wrong move, and it could all explode. A sudden crackling sound interrupted her thoughts. The alien general's voice boomed, distant but unmistakable. "You are too late. The countdown has already begun. Your efforts are meaningless." Samantha gritted her teeth. She wasn't done yet. She wasn't a coward. Not by a long shot. With a quick, decisive motion, she activated the orbs. The entire structure vibrated violently, the pulsing light growing stronger, more intense. Samantha stumbled back as the chamber filled with a low, resonating hum. The weapon was awakening. The power was incredible, a force unlike anything she had ever felt before. But the alien general was right about one thing. This was no easy feat. She could feel the danger radiating off the device, the risk of failure lingering in the air like a storm waiting to break. For a brief moment, doubt crept in. Was she ready to wield such power? Could she truly control it? But then a flash of clarity. She had to. Samantha steadied her breath, keeping her focus sharp. She knew what she had to do now. The key to the weapon wasn't just understanding its power. It was knowing how to use it without losing herself in the process. With one final push, she harnessed the energy, directing it outward. The ground shook violently, the chamber around her erupting with light. The weapon was ready, and with it so was she. The air was thick with anticipation as the alien general stepped into view, his towering form cloaked in heavy, dark armor. His presence seemed to warp the very atmosphere around him, the ground beneath his feet trembling with every step. He was no longer just a voice. He was a force, a living embodiment of the challenge Samantha had come to face. The structure behind her still hummed with energy, but she knew the general's arrival meant there was no turning back. This wasn't about the weapon anymore. This was about survival. And more than that, it was about proving that humanity could never be cowed. "You think you can win?" The alien general's voice resonated deep and menacing. "One human alone, against a force that has shattered empires. Samantha stood tall, refusing to let the general's taunts rattle her. The weapon was ready, but she wasn't sure it was enough. Her mind raced. The general had always been 3 steps ahead. This wasn't going to be an easy fight, and if she wasn't careful, it could be her last. "I don't need an empire to beat you," she said, her voice cutting through the thick tension. "I just need one shot." Without warning, the alien general lunged, his speed defying his massive frame. Samantha barely had time to react, her rifle coming up just in time to fire a burst of energy. The shot hit the general square in the chest, but his armor absorbed the blow with little more than a spark. He grinned, a cold, knowing expression that only made Samantha's resolve harden. "You think a few blasts will change anything? You've learned nothing." The ground beneath them cracked open, and the general slammed his fist into the earth, sending shockwaves through the air. Samantha stumbled, but quickly regained her footing, dodging the next strike that came aimed at her head. The sheer force of his attacks was overwhelming, each blow sending a ripple through the terrain. She had to think fast. The weapon wasn't meant for direct combat. It was meant for something bigger, something smarter. As the alien general advanced, Samantha realized the key wasn't in overwhelming power. It was in strategy. She had to outsmart him. She ducked behind a pile of broken stone, using the wreckage as a shield. The general's fists collided with it, pulverizing the rock into dust, but Samantha was already on the move. She sprinted, keeping low, the weapon still humming in her hands. The general's movements were deliberate, measured. He was trying to break her physically and mentally. But Samantha had learned long ago that when facing an overwhelming force, the best strategy was to stay unpredictable. She turned, running toward a narrow passageway in the ruins, hoping to force the general into a confined space where his massive size would become a disadvantage. As she darted through the gap, the alien general followed, his footsteps thundering behind her. But just as he was about to corner her, she triggered the device. A pulse of energy shot from the weapon, and the ground beneath them shattered. The energy shot straight into the air, forming a barrier of light, trapping the general within its confines. The general roared in fury, slamming his fists against the barrier, but it held. Samantha stood on the other side, panting, her eyes focused on the alien general's furious face. She had done it. She had trapped him. But the countdown, she had nearly forgotten. The device was only a temporary solution. The general's plan was still in motion. "You think you've won," the general growled, his voice a low rumble. "The device is not your salvation. It is your doom." The word struck like a punch to the gut. Samantha's heart raced as the realization dawned. The countdown wasn't just some trap. It was connected to the weapon itself. The barrier would not hold for long, and if she couldn't destroy the general now, the weapon would turn against her. She glanced at the device, the glowing orbs within it pulsating more violently now, responding to the general's anger. The weapon wasn't just powerful, it was unstable. She had to act, and fast. "Time's up," she whispered, pulling the trigger once more. This time, the explosion that followed was not just a pulse of energy. It was the culmination of everything Samantha had fought for. The weapon roared to life, and in that final moment, the alien general's mocking expression was replaced with one of shock. He didn't have time to react. Samantha's heart pounded in her chest as the world around her erupted into chaos. But for the first time since she had arrived on this planet, she felt the slightest spark of hope. The fight wasn't over, but she had just changed the rules. The explosion rippled through the alien world, a shock wave that shattered the ground and sent dust billowing into the sky. Samantha's ears rang with the aftershock, but her focus never wavered. She knew that the alien general was still alive. He couldn't be gone so easily. But the advantage was hers now. The ground trembled beneath her feet as the alien general, battered and enraged, staggered to his feet. His armor was scorched, but he was far from defeated. He bellowed in fury, shaking off the remnants of the blast, as if they were nothing more than an inconvenience. His eyes locked onto Samantha with pure hatred. "You think this changes anything, human?" he spat, his voice filled with venom. "You've delayed the inevitable. You are nothing but a fleeting moment in the face of what's to come." Samantha didn't flinch. The alien general's words were just noise now. She had been through too much, fought too hard, to let his threats land. She didn't have the luxury of doubt anymore. Earth was depending on her, and she could not fail. "You're wrong," Samantha said, her voice calm but firm. "Humanity is stronger than you ever imagined. And you just found out why." With a quick motion, she raised the device again, pointing it directly at the general. The weapon's pulse flickered in her hand, a beacon of energy waiting to be unleashed. The general moved, but Samantha was faster, using the environment to her advantage as she darted around the battlefield. The alien general lunged once more, but this time, Samantha was ready. She activated the device, releasing a focused burst of energy that struck the general directly. He howled in pain, his body convulsing as the blast hit. But he wasn't finished yet. The general staggered, his movements slower now, but the menace in his eyes never wavered. He charged again, but Samantha saw the cracks in his armor, saw the desperation in his eyes. He wasn't the perfect warrior he had once believed himself to be. The general had underestimated humanity, and now it was his undoing. Samantha focused her aim and fired again. The energy beam sliced through the air, striking the general's chest with precision. His body crumpled under the force, his massive frame collapsing to the ground with a deafening thud. For a moment, silence reigned. Samantha stood there, watching the alien general lie still on the ground, his once formidable form now reduced to nothing more than a broken shell. She felt no triumph, no victory in the moment, only the weight of the mission's cost. The countdown, the one that had haunted her from the beginning, had finally reached zero. But instead of devastation, there was a strange, quiet hum, a pulse of energy that spread across the planet, reversing the damage the general had caused. The weapon had worked. She had stopped the destruction. The victory was complete. Samantha's knees felt weak, and for the first time, the weight of exhaustion hit her all at once. She collapsed to the ground, breathing hard, her body bruised and battered from the fight. But she had done it. She had survived. She had won. As the sky above her began to shift, the orange hue fading into a calm blue, a voice crackled in her earpiece. It was a voice she hadn't heard in what felt like forever, the voice of Earth's command. "Samantha, do you copy?" Her throat was dry, but she forced the words out. "I copy. The alien general is down. The weapon, it's been neutralized. The countdown is over." There was a long pause on the other end, and then a single word came through, heavy with meaning: victory. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the relief wash over her. The weight of the mission, the fear, the isolation, all of it faded into the background as she realized the truth. Earth had survived. Humanity had survived. She wasn't just a soldier anymore. She was the symbol of something much greater, a testament to the resilience, the ingenuity, and the strength of the human spirit. And as the alien world began to crumble around her, Samantha knew that this would not be the end. This was only the beginning. Humanity had faced the greatest challenge in its history and had emerged victorious.